Welcome, beautiful, lovely human beings. So today's Sangha, which is the first of every single month, the first Sunday of every month, is going to be about going like a river, flowing like a river. And today is going to be about finding balance and understanding how you can create your own gata so that you can have something meaningful and also something constructive, something action focused that you can do in your day to day world. So, first, welcome. And what we're going to do is, I'm not going to be in the chat a whole lot because I want to run through and I wanted to be able to save this for you. So, running through the schedule in a timely manner. And I'm going to be explaining some things because some of you don't know what a Sangha feels like or looks like. And I wanted to be able to explain that and welcome you into the Breathe Sangha. So first of all, I have a itinerary here because I love a list. And in this itinerary, we're going to go through and I'm going to be teaching you a little bit as we go through. And it won't take long. We're talking 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops, okay? So number one, my name is Michelle Pava, and I was ordained by Plum Village, Thich Nhat Hanh, and my ordained name is to basically, well, I won't give you the whole name, but it's basically Joyful Realization of Source is the name. So because of my love of Zen Buddhism and having a Sangha under the umbrella of Plum Village, I wanted to be able to create something public, not just where someone signs up. So you can sign up and you can get all of my notes and so forth. And signing up is free if you want to do that. It's donation based, but you don't have to do anything. But I thought that this month I would do it live as well, publicly. So first, I want to do the welcome bell. And the bell is really just your moment to just take a big inhale and exhale because you might have stress, don't we all? And because we might have stress, we need to bring ourselves back to our breath and allow ourselves to really just hear the vibration of that sound. Okay. Now, I'm going to read you a little bit. Now, when we get down a little bit more, there are times where you can be more interactive and feel free to use the chat. I won't be answering the chat right now. However, I will come back and leave some comments. So, we're going to be talking about gathas. And gathas are basically a short poem that we use to bring ourselves back to mindfulness, especially if we've had some kind of a stress in our lives, and this is what we want to do. So I'm going to read a little bit first. So the gatha that I'm using today is Go as a River. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was the founder of the hospice movement, once stated that all emotions stem from love or fear. And the reason why I'm doing this topic is because I had a conversation with someone recently and he brought this theory up. But I noticed he was using it as a very black and white system and that he was focused on the love aspect, almost like the fear aspect was a negative. In Buddhism, we don't feel this way. And so I want to read a little bit more about this and tell me if this resonates with you. So while it is widely accepted, it is simplistic to assume that truth is that we can't experience any two emotions at once. And that is the truth, that we can't experience any two emotions at once. But we can ping pong at a very rapid pace back and forth, and we often do. So the idea that we can't experience any two emotions at once, like love and fear, is not new stuff, okay? This has been around for a long time. We don't experience any two emotions at once. However, we can ping pong back and forth between several emotions within milliseconds and we don't notice it. So we might say, oh, I feel conflicted. Conflicted means you're just running a little bit too quickly with some of those emotions. But that's okay, because when we feel conflicted, it forces us to take a step back and slow down that ping pong of going through all of those different emotions. So, fear and love are opposite emotions. Fear arises from aversion, rejection, and fear of potential outcomes, unwillingness to accept people or what they might do to us or say to us. That's fear. We've become happiness addicts, though, and we use love, the term love, and the the actions of love in an abusive way, and we use the term love abusively, just as abusively as hate or fear. And so we can be very superficial with using love, very superficial with the idea of love and how we treat people. We could cross boundaries too quickly. We could try to move things along very quickly because we're so craving something. And that will create boundary issues. So, in that instance, is the love actually love, or is it stemming from the actions of love are stemming from fear or anger or suffering? So, metta, which is love, is a boundless friendliness that arises when we cultivate goodwill toward ourselves and others and allow people to be who they are. So, if you are love focused, anything that your partner, your friends, your children do is going to be very acceptable because you know that they're on their path. So, as you can see, we often say that we're so in love, but we're not always navigating in love, right? Okay. Fear closes us off and traps us in conceiving ourselves as isolated, vulnerable, and wronged. So that is part of what fear does, but that's also part of what love can do as well. So if you're in love and you make a commitment, you may start to feel that you are being suffocated or you want to get out of that relationship. So even though love and the action of love and all of the feelings of love brought you to a certain place, underneath of it was fear. Because if you get to the place of fear in that relationship and not much has changed, nobody has hurt you, basically, they've just changed as a person, then you were acting from fear from day one. It wasn't love that you were acting from. Okay. So it's very hard to decipher this because a lot of people will say, well, I got married or I started this relationship with X, Y, and Z, and I came from a place of love, but then they did X, Y, and Z, and I decided to get out of that relationship. Now, unless it was abusive, unless it was toxic, whatever they've done was just them being who they were. Now, if it was toxic, abusive, and narcissist, I totally get it. Get out of Dodge. But if it was just something you didn't like, or you felt like your financial situation might change a little bit or whatever, then you felt fear or anger or resentment. And there's a lot of different feelings you can have. Let me go back to, was it actually love that you got into the relationship for, or was it attachment? They're two very different things. They often overlap, but they are not the same thing. So if you got into a relationship for attachment, or you thought it was what you thought you should do, there was never love. There was some behaviors of love. There were some symbols of love. There might have been feelings of attachment and gratitude, but that's not love. Love is accepting the person exactly who they are and supporting them on their journey, even if you don't like that journey. And again, many of us don't really feel that, right? So, how much of it is truly love? And this is where we can ping pong back and forth. You may feel love, but you might feel resentment or anger or fear. And that's totally normal. So, let's go on. So, I could say that black and white are opposite emotions, right? I can say any two things are black and white, or any two emotions are where everything stems from. So I could say that black and white are where everything stems from. And black would be all of the negative things that we don't want to feel, and white would be all of the pure things that are good. So is it really that fear and love are truly where everything comes from? Or is it just the label that we've all said, I accept this? In Buddhism, there is suffering and nirvana. They are very different than just fear and love. However, it is just as valid. So the reason why we're doing this topic for Sangha today, and I'm so glad I was inspired by this topic, is because we too often are labeling ourselves. And in psychology, we are all too often labeled. We have bipolar, we have schizophrenia, we have ADHD, we are stressed, we have anxiety. And these are all things that really flow, except for schizophrenia. Although even schizophrenia can be relieved with help from the medical community, right? So everything is really fluid. There's so much that is not going to be an absolute. And there are things that we thought were absolutes in the past that have become non issues, right? Think of some of the different issues that people have had. You know, long before there was chemotherapy, it was just you had cancer and that was it. And then we started having medical and pharmaceutical advances. And suddenly there's a lot of options. So things that used to be an absolute become a non issue or an issue that is often addressable, right? So we can't think of just love and fear, black and white. And when we start to go into suffering and nirvana, we see that both of these are really big topics. So it's not like black, white, love, fear. By the way, what you call love and what I call love could be completely different. So, how do we even define that? Although we all can agree that suffering feels a certain type of way. We all can agree that suffering for everyone is going to look a little bit different, but we all assume that love is going to be a certain dynamic, right? So suffering can be my avocado is not ripe today, or suffering could be your grandmother was in a Holocaust camp and you are haunted by her experiences that she shared with you. So you have all of these different ideas of what suffering could be, which is a wide range of items. But love would be, I fell in love. I caught feelings. I was smitten. I'm swooning. You know, all of these things are going towards a certain space where really it's about the other person accepting us in the beginning. In the beginning, when you're first meeting someone, you're more blown away by the fact that they are giving you attention. And in Buddhism, listening is one of the best things that you can do. And so the irony is a lot of people that will actually be good listeners don't tell you that they're a good listener. It's a given. And also they could tell you, it could be valid, but listening is something that is it makes you feel heard and it makes you feel valued because if you're not listened to, if you're cast aside and you're just being talked at, then you're feeling like you're just a warm body filling their need. And they may feel that they're in love with you because you're listening, because they're getting their affirmation. And we're going to be going into a little bit more here. So let me finish up. So again, the need for psychology to hyperdefine is actually part of the problem, although it's also very helpful. In Zen Buddhism, there is suffering and nirvana, like I just talked about, and there's many experiences in between. And we expect in Buddhism that we honor all of them. We don't push fear away. We don't push suffering away. We want to make friends with our fear and make friends with our suffering, and then use that energy as a vitality. Traditionally, in psychology, even with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who I absolutely admire, and I've read the books and I've studied her, and she's the one that actually came up with the theory, like I said earlier, of love and fear. And that was coming from her experiences, right? So in her experiences, that was truth. And so as a Buddhist, we honor that. We honor that that's her truth. It's not necessarily everyone's truth. And while you might accept it, it doesn't mean that you can't alter or change or take that and build upon it. So learning something isn't just learning and taking it and saying, okay, this is it. This is what I believe. This is it. It's about changing. The one interesting thing in Buddhism, and I will get into it, well, maybe not today, but I'll get into it deeply another day, is that we honor that things don't stay the same. So in Buddhism, it's not, we're supposed to look at Buddhism and say, oh, well, Buddhism in 10 years is probably going to look a little bit different. And Buddhism in 100 years is definitely going to look different. Where in some other religions, it's more about keeping the tradition and holding on while making micro changes to fit society. Buddhism is a little bit different, where it's about the fluid focus of growth. And so, and changing with the times as well, but also taking the teachings and applying them to the times and also growing as we learn new things. So if something comes up and we learn where mindfulness in the brain actually comes to a certain space, then we will start to go deeper into that, right? So let's take a step back because you're going to be doing something very creative today that's going to really help you, like I said in the beginning. So, first to understand, so the gata of go as a river was from Thich Nhat Hanh. He created that gata. Gatas are just small poems, and they help to bring you back to mindfulness in the moment to help you get through some of the celebrations of life because you do have to get through those as well as some of the trials, right? So, it helps to bring us awareness. And if our hearts are big, so to go deeper into go as a river, if our hearts are big, we are filled with compassion and the ability to let people be who they are. And we love them for those changes. We love them for everything that they are. But if we can't go as a river, we become stagnant or we become drought ridden, where we don't have that love, we don't have that ability. At that point, we have less compassion, right? We have less compassion towards ourselves because we're not allowing our own growth and we're definitely closing people off. So every time you sort of separate from someone, every time you decide that this is not what I want, your heart is actually not in an expansive mode. So you're not flowing like a river. Again, this is not about narcissists or toxic people. In fact, it's the opposite. The moment you decide to leave someone who is toxic to you, the moment you decide that you're not putting up with a narcissist, that your parent was in fact wrong, they might have been a hard worker, they might have been doing a lot of things, they could have had a lot of attributes that they brought to the table. But if under it they were not giving you what you needed, if you can look back now, then it's okay to let that part of the relationship go. You don't have to ignore them, but it's okay to acknowledge that they were human and that they weren't perfect. Also, it's okay if there was someone really toxic in your past. It's totally okay to just say, you know what? I need to let this person go. I'm going to go as a river. So they are a rock that was in the past that was rough and bumpy. You've smoothed it over and you're still flowing. You're just letting things go. And that is part of what this gata is all about. So, trying to stay on my meeting here, we're going to go to a place where we just sort of bow right now. Now, if you were in a Zoom with me in a meeting, this would be a little bit more interactive, but hands come to heart center, and we just do a quick bow. Now, in this bow, I want you to realize that you're not just bowing to my energy or the energy of other people that are in your room, on Zoom, in the world, your ancestors, whatever. You're also bowing to yourself. So when you bow, it is showing that you are humble and you are almost childlike in you have a curiosity to learn. So bringing your hands to heart center with an inhale, exhale, bow, and bring yourself back up. Okay. Take a moment here. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the first mindfulness training. Now there's 5 mindfulness trainings and then there's 14 mindfulness trainings also. So we're going to go into a mindfulness training and all I'm going to do is I'm going to read, give you a little bit of background on it. It's just one paragraph, not a big deal. But we're going to be using all of this today to make your gata, excuse me, that you're going to create for today. Okay. So this is going to be when you hear this one, because we're talking about going as a river. And I should mention that these trainings are from Plum Village. This is from Thich Nhat Hanh, the late Thich Nhat Hanh. I always speak about him like he's still here because he constantly spoke about how we don't die, we just change form, and that our ancestors are clouds and dirt and all of that. And that our energy is just everywhere. So I always think of him still as in the present. So we're going to go into the first mindfulness training. It is just one small paragraph. And then we're going to go back into the gatas and creating your gata. And you're going to create something very personal for you. And I'm going to help you through it. But first, we need to touch onto this. So, first mindfulness training, openness. Aware of the suffering created by being a fanatic or intolerant. We are determined not to be focused on idol. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, as I'm reading. We're determined not to be focused on idols or bound by doctrines. This is what I was just talking about 2 seconds ago, where I said that in Buddhism, it's not about everything is going to be the same. It's not about that we're never going to change and this is the way Buddhism is and this is the way it's always going to be. It's about knowing that it's going to be fluid. So, we are committed to seeing the Buddhist teachings as a guide that will help us develop our understanding and compassion, but these doctrines are not about fighting, killing, or dying for. We understand that anything in a fanatic vein is going to result in perceiving things in a dual, which means love, fear, black, white, anger, peace, any of those opposites. And we don't want to see things in duals, right? So if we train ourselves to look at everything with openness and insight and the insight of interbeing, where we're all connected, interbeing, we will train ourselves to look at things as an inner being and transform violence in ourselves and in the world. This is why I actually don't prescribe to the theory that everything is from love and fear. I know that if you Google it all over the internet, it's going to say, well, love is happy and love is this and love is that, and fear is blah, 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 blah. And that's really not the case because you can interchange those words and it could be anything else. You could put black and white, you could put red and blue. And I can say, well, everything beautiful is from pink. And here's why. And everything bad is from, leopard print. Like it just doesn't make sense because you can interchange the words and make sense of it. So anytime that you can switch a theory around very simply, it actually makes a lot of sense. Now, in psychology, the psychology of love and fear is a little different. So, most people are suffering because they don't want something and they don't want that thing, or they don't want what happened to them because it in some way altered their life and they don't want the suffering anymore. It's not necessarily fear, though, it's the suffering that they're feeling and they want to alleviate. We can call it fear, we can call it anger, you can call it, surely if you want, but it is what it is. So again, taking away the labels actually helps us because we're not in that dual place. Because if when we're that dualism, we're constantly going to be, there's conflict then. So we want to remove the dualism and get away from that. So based on that, I'm going to do a quick reading. And that was just a little bit of that was just a snippet of openness in one of the mindfulness trainings. This is just a paragraph. Again, I have to get to it. I do have a bookmark. Okay, quick paragraph. This is going to help you, I promise. Okay, if we look deeply at the present moment, we see the past and the future in it. Again, think about this. The past and the future, they're opposites, right? Okay. The insight of interbeing also applies to time. We see that the present is made up of non-present elements. That is the past and the future. For example, in this present moment right now, I am the result of everything I've eaten, every action I've ever taken, and every experience I've ever had, not just in my lifetime, but in my ancestors. Same for you. So the past is always there, accessible. We can enter that deep contact with the past through the present moment. That is true for the future as well. So, normally we say that the future is not here yet, but we can touch it right now by getting deeply in touch with the present moment. So, we can get in touch with the future by getting in touch with the present moment. Because of an interbeing nature, the present cannot exist by itself. It interexists with the past and future. So the present isn't its individual thing, right? It cannot be the present without the past or future. It just doesn't exist that way. Love does not exist without fear. Therefore, fear is not the opposite of love. It is a part of love. Love is a part of fear. They are not able to exist without each other. Opposites can't exist without each other. Black can't exist without white, dark, light, red, green. Uh, these are all things that cannot exist without each other. We need to have the frame of reference, and they are actually a part of each other, as is time. It's like a flower that cannot exist by itself. It has to interexist with the sun and the earth. This is true for time too. The present is made up of material called the past and the past and future are here in the present. So the future, 2 hours from now, this moment that we're sharing is a part of the future. So the future can't exist without the present, and the present can't exist without the past. It's all interconnected. So this is what is meant by going as a river also, or even flowing as a river. So when Thich Nhat Hanh began that poem, it was that gata, it was because of understanding that everything is flowing, therefore everything is changing. So, what I want you to do right now is go deeply into your heart and soul. And I want you to think about something that is really troubling you. It can be topical, it can be very deep. And so, when we go into that space, I'm going to ring the Tibetan bowl, and we're just going to breathe a little bit and think about what is really weighing on us. Now, if we were in a Zoom meeting together, we would be having this discussion. But for right now, I'm just going to ring the bell, and it's going to be very short because we can't have a discussion. So just listen to the bell or the bowl. And I want you to just honor that right now you're going to get in touch with something that's deeply troubling, perhaps. Now, you can come back to this exercise or even just pause this because you're going to need to think about something. And this is where we get creative. So I want you to find something that is deep within you. Maybe there was a trauma when you were a child. Maybe you have a parent that is just toxic. Maybe you're in a relationship that you feel like you don't know. Do you stay? Do you go? Are you struggling with something yourself? Are you struggling with a health condition? Are you feeling too young and no one's taking you seriously, or older where you feel invisible, or people are treating you like you're incompetent? I want you to go back and forth with the things that are surfacing for you right now and just choose one. And so the reason why I chose Go as a River is because I felt that I was seeing things in my life as too black and white. I was getting in that place of something's either good or it's bad, that there's no in between. And so Go as a River for me was very important. But what you're going to do is, I have now, if you were in my Zoom, you would have some of these handouts, but so it's just creating your own gata. So when you create it, it's just a poem. It could be one phrase or a couple of quick phrases, not really more than 10 to 15 words, if that, preferably 3 to 5 words. And it doesn't have to make a whole lot of sense. It could just be very short. So Go as a River is says a lot in very little words. And so all I want you to do is think of something small that inspires you. So if, for instance, you're thinking about a past trauma, remember that your present and future are going to be part of that. Maybe your gata might be something like one petal falls, something as simple as that, meaning your trauma would be a petal and you're allowing it to fall, but that petal was a part of the whole flower. So anything that works for you. And again, you might need to pause. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you also what we're going to do. So you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to put your phrase in the paper, but you're also going to create an enso circle. So I'm going to just put Go as a river. So here's my just Go as a river. And enso circle is just a circle. I need space. Hold on. So the circle is going to look like, hold on. It's going to be a very unfinished, it's an unfinished circle. And it's not going to be perfect. And so that's what I want you to do. And then I want you to get your piece of paper and I want you to put it somewhere And that's going to be your mantra for the day, the week, the month, your life, whatever. And you will find that as struggles and emotions come up in your life, positive or negative, you can create one. So the reason why we do an Enso circle is to remind ourselves that nothing is perfect and that we are focusing inward. So nothing is perfect and we are focusing inward. And we're also letting go. So part of the idea that there's a space, that we always keep a space in our Enso circle, is that we're not going to hold on to anything, including things that we love. We have to understand that even what we love or enjoy is probably going to be temporary. Well, it's definitely going to be temporary because we are temporary. So everything in our lives is really temporary. And that helps us to, instead of having fear, have gratitude for each and every moment that we get to have these experiences. So I want you to go ahead and do that. And I know that we can't share right now. So what's on my list here for meeting is not going to be possible. But what I do want you to do is I want you to email me. I want you to comment below, share. I want to know what your gata is and why you came up with it, maybe, but you don't even have to tell me why you came up with it. But I would love for you to do that. I would also love for you to go to my website, and the information is below. And when you go to my website, you're going to see that I have a free course, Happy Again, which is all about understanding suffering more deeply. And also, you could just sign up to my mailing list as well. So, by doing that, you'll be invited to Sangha where we can interact and we can share and also just explore, sort of a show and tell of what's happening in your life. So just so you know, in Sangha, when we share, it's not exactly like a support group. So in a support group, it would be sharing only what's bothering you or only with the aim of finding a solution. In Sangha, our sharing could be anything. So I might bow. So bowing is kind of saying like, I'm bringing my energy into the group and I want to say something. So if we were all in Zoom seeing each other, somebody would bow, and if a couple of people bow, then we go to one person or the other. But you bow and you might say something like, today I saw a mother and child walking, and I could just tell how the mother loved her child. That could be it. Or it could be something personal that you're going through. I myself have been in sanghas where people talk about really um, weighty things and also where they bring up small things like on the drive here, I saw a beautiful tree in bloom. And then they bow. That's the end of their energy. And that's it. In Sangha, also, we don't give opinions or fix anyone. We're all on a journey. There's no hierarchy. And so, even if someone is talking about something very painful, we just let them share because listening is more important than fixing. Listening is more important. If they ask for help, they may ask for help in session. So I shouldn't say session, in Sangha. So if they bow, share something painful, and then say, after Sangha, I'm open to talking about this if anyone has any advice. That's different. But you do not do any advising or fixing in Sangha. So it's very beautiful because it's just about being, and it is honestly going as a river. So on that, I'm going to close. Normally, we also meditate, but you can just meditate right after this. And in my Sangha, we focus more on creativity like we just did in exercise than a lot of meditation that's quiet because it is interactive, and I feel that after the interaction you can take another 15-20 minutes to meditate if you like. So we only do a minute or two of meditation and mindfulness, and on that we are going to have a full minute, and then at the end of that I'm just going to close out. And I just first want to say thank you so much for your energy and your time. And I just hope that whatever gata that you develop today, I hope you do it, number one. I know a lot of people will watch something and not go through with the action, but you deserve to experience the action of a gata, and I would love to hear about it. So you can email me as well as comment. So I just hope that today has been energetically beautiful for you. And I want to tell you that what I am experiencing right now is out the window right behind my computer screen is just beautiful green trees. And I'm listening to music and I'm here with you. And I feel very lucky and I'm filled with gratitude.